What is up, everybody? Diamond King 5923 coming at you with a special episode 7 of our Steelers franchise in the year 2022. So, after collaborating with one of my fellow peers, we are going to unveil a draft class here in 5 seconds. I will let you know who that peer is as soon as he's ready to do his intro.
Alright, just 1 second. I'm typing and we'll be good to go. Alright guys, welcome back into my channel. If you guys have not already, make sure that you guys go and check out Diamond King 5923's YouTube channel. He does franchise content and some different things here on YouTube. He's one of my good friends, and I actually helped him out with this Pittsburgh Steelers franchise. We have on a couple occasions done dual commentary on his games and stuff like that, so if that's something you're interested in, make sure you go check out his channel. He's in 2022-2023, right? That's the season you're in?
Yep.
And so he has a very interesting Pittsburgh Steelers team at that point in the franchise. So if you haven't, go catch up to that and start watching his videos. But what I want to say is that we collaborated to create a draft class for his franchise. So in this video, we're going to go through some of the draft class, and I created some backstories for what's going on with the draft class, just to have a little bit of fun. This is a different video than usual, so hopefully we can have some fun with it. I'll show you guys his team real quick first. He has Josh Rosen, obviously Ben Roethlisberger retired, and maybe you could run through some of what's happened since Ben retired, because I know that there are a lot of other retirements that happened since then. So if you want to take that away.
So we're looking at, we brought in Josh Rosen. It was the first year of the franchise. Second year of the franchise. Ben lost the Super Bowl. We started looking around. Jake, I, and another one of our friends, Naderade, collaborated, and we all said, if not Dwayne Haskins to be the successor in Pittsburgh of current young quarterbacks, then we all agreed that Josh Rosen would be a perfect fit. So we went out and signed Josh Rosen again to that ridiculous contract. And then I think it was last week I talked to Jake, and we both agreed that there's no way backup quarterback should be getting paid $70 million in his first big contract. So we cut that down to 4 years, $30 million, right?
Right, somewhere around there. He's getting paid roughly $10 million per year if I'm looking at the breakdown right now.
So then we have Holton Ahlers. This was our 5th round pick. Again, he has the same archetype as Rosen, but he's faster. As you can see right here, his speed is 84. So he's more of a mobile quarterback. He played well in preseason off screen, but again, Rosen's our starter. Let's go to the halfbacks. So, update. We traded Benny Snell last season, right at the trade deadline, to San Francisco. Almost paid for it because James Conner was out 3 weeks after that. So we brought in Alex Collins. Alex Collins was one of those guys that I told Jake I wasn't too sure about bringing back.
Yeah.
But
he kind of ended up needing him, right?
Because, he really balled out. He balled out. We wouldn't have won that Cincinnati game if Alex Collins wouldn't have had that, 75-yard run and beautiful stiff arm.
Right.
It was insane.
I remember watching that live. That was a great game, great play. And then who's the guy that broke his ankle, fractured his ankle, so he had a career-ending injury?
So we lost current Steeler Anthony McFarland Jr. So we have him at punter right now because he's on the IR, but we have decided that he is one of those players that is going to be forced into retirement, sort of like, Jake, try to help me out. Was it David Wilson who was running back for the Giants that fractured his back and he decided to walk away?
I can't. You might be right.
It was Wilson. I'm not sure if his first name's David though, but he was on a Virginia Tech, played half a year with the Giants, thought he was going to be the breakout running back preseason week 2 against, I want to say it was Kansas City. He got upended trying to dive over the pylon, fractured his back, never played again. So that's where we're at with Anthony McFarland. So he is forced into retirement. He's just kind of a scout right now. So going back. So this next pick, which is one guy that I'm really excited about because he really filled the void of Anthony McFarland, and McFarland found him, was Jerry and Ely. So he is another spark plug running back out of the SEC at Ole Miss. So pretty happy with Ely, hoping
And
he
then I
fills
see you
in
also got
nice. And we
Quadri
signed
Olison.
Quadri Olison because James Conner was hurt. So two Pittsburgh
It
running backs, hoping Olison can be mentored by Conner to potentially take that Alex Collins like role.
it looks like Derek Watt stuck around. Your receivers are pretty much the same. I know that you've put in a lot of effort in revamping the offensive line.
Yeah.
Who did anybody retire on the O line, or what's gone on with the O line?
So Villanueva, we decided he was 32, and he's been in the Steelers organization now for 6 years. So we decided, okay, well, it's time to move on from Villanueva. Like it hurt. Like he was one of those strong anchors to the offensive line. Just wanted too much money. He decided to go play for Washington right here, as he got a nice chunk of change, 8.2 million. So we're probably looking at 30 million a year. Not a year, but 30 million over a course of 4 years. So
It's a
he'll
good
retire with them.
contract for him.
Jamari Salyer, he was our first round pick this year. So Salyer isn't the greatest. He's normal. Again, this wasn't a deep class, and we had the 31st pick. But we also went out and got Ezra Cleveland, as he was, I want to say he was Minnesota Vikings' second round pick this year in this draft. For some reason, EA doesn't really like it when we create players, so they always end up in free agency. So you'll notice a lot of the new guys that are going to be on rookie contracts this year in Madden 21 are on the team. But let's move on. Luke Campbell, this guy, he came in last year as a rookie and was garbage the first 4 games of the season. But as he progressed into the mentorship of Marquise Pouncey, he just blossomed into a great pulling left guard, almost to Castro level. He has a long way to go, but he's a great player out of Michigan State. I always say he's out of Ohio State. I gotta fix that. And then Garrett Brumfield, he's still chilling here.
Well, I see you got Cushenberry out of LSU. Always
Yes,
nice to
we
see one
picked
of my
up
LSU boys.
Yes, we picked up Denver's center, and we drafted Brett Nylon. So he's a solid center. So these two really competed for the starting job. Cushenberry just too powerful with that 90 strength to not start him this year.
It's nice to see DeCastro still hanging around at age 31.
So DeCastro, that had a lot to do with Josh Rosen. So Josh Rosen coming over to Castro, really liked the effort that Rosen put in practice, and DeCastro talked to Rosen because DeCastro was on the border of retiring with Pouncey and Cam Hayward that you'll see here in a second with Ben. But DeCastro decided to stay around to mentor this young offensive line to hopefully. Again, we're trying to get to the Super Bowl. We probably won't get there this year. This team is really young now. But David DeCastro stayed around to mentor that team and that offensive line. So you go to
And
right
then
tackle. Alaric
it,
Jackson has just been a stud.
I was
If
gonna
you
say, it looks
watch,
like this is one of your better picks. That's
yeah,
for sure.
Alaric Jackson was the first pick. No, he was my first round pick. This guy right here, I went backwards. He was my first round pick last year. Jamari Salyer was my fifth round pick this year. So,
This says Alaric Jackson was the 5th round pick
okay, that's
in
right.
2020.
Yeah, so Alaric Jackson started off the franchise as one of our lucky picks, and as you can see here, he has star. He had hidden when we drafted him, which was huge, because it's rare that linemen get good dev grades. So like the Castro, I believe he has star. No, he has superstar. He has
Superstar, yeah.
superstar, where like offensive linemen usually are normal. But moving on
And
to the defense.
I was
Go
gonna
ahead.
say, along the D line, it looks like Hayward retired for you, and you had to start Highsmith, and then from there you picked up to Daryl Slayton.
Yeah,
Was
to
that a
Daryl
draft
Slayton.
pick?
Yeah, on a Abilene Christian. He was my first pick in the draft with Jackson because we needed a nose tackle. And Slayton really came in and is starting to get his own, as you can see there, 96 strength, powerhouse in the weight room. We still had Davidson, wasn't impressive, so we decided to keep him around. And we still have Kevon Walker, the XFL standout.
And it looks like a lot of the other players on the defense are the same. You have obviously added Kevin King at corner, which is a big pickup, and then you added
Raekwon
Raekwon
McMillan
McMillan at middle linebacker, which is another speedy linebacker.
to
So you
pair
have
with Devin
you have a
Bush.
really fast, you have a really speedy linebacking core.
Yeah.
91, 86, 86, 88, which is pretty good.
But yeah, corners, Joe Hayden decided to walk away from the Steelers and sign a 1-year deal with New England, I believe. Let me double check that.
All right. And while you're going through that, I'm going to hop over to the franchise where I created the draft class. That way we can then get started up on that.
I'm not quite sure where Joe Hayden went, but I keep saying he's in New England. But then we have Brooks Jr. But let me go back and talk about Mikael Wright. He was a third-round pick this year in the draft, and he's been just balling out. He's slowly moving into that slot corner position where Kevin King plays. So it's going to be interesting to watch that battle, as Wright has also almost taken 2 punts back to the house. So definitely a dangerous man in the special teams. So then, just to finish up, at strong safety, we drafted Rajay Burns out of West Virginia, a hard-hitting safety. Comes in, plays nice role player role. So hopefully he can do his thing. And then we saw Boswell and Barry left this year, and we have Ryan Stonehouse, the punter out of Colorado State. A fun story about Ryan Stonehouse. Jake was doing a draft last night in another league, and he was looking at punters, and he said, should I take Ryan Stonehouse? And if you can tell from my franchise, if you guys have been tuning in, Ryan Stonehouse is absolute garbage. He can't punt to save his life. One of the worst decisions of my life. And then our picks this year are 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 4s, 2 5s, a 6, and 2 7s. So that's that.
All right, guys. So if you, not to interrupt, but if you want to, if you find that interesting, if you like the way his team's looking or anything, and, heads up, if you like the way this draft class looks, make sure you check out his channel because he's got a really interesting franchise going on. It's really fun to watch his games. He's got good, close games, I would say 90% of the time. Haven't won a Super Bowl yet, right?
No, yeah, we're on the doorstep to 7 twice now. Got matched up against New Orleans, Drew Brees. There was a controversial call at the end of that one where Deontay Johnson should have been Chase Claypool should have got tackled out of bounds to set up a field goal to go to OT, but wasn't called. And then Ben just kind of fell off in the Super Bowl, missing targets, trying to force throws. We were able to come back down 7, but weren't able to win the big game. So hopefully Rosen's able to pull this one out for us.
All right, guys, I think we can get into the draft class now. Like I said, I developed some stories behind what's going on here with this draft class for his franchise, just to give it to some more depth and make things even more interesting when it comes draft time in his franchise. So just to kind of help him out, and if you guys wouldn't mind, go at least check out his channel, check out his videos, and hit that subscribe button if you guys like his content. To start off with, in this draft class, I want to just give a general overview of what's going on in the college football landscape. And Tyler and I wanted to make sure that you guys know that, this is all fictional, this is all made up. Obviously, none of this is real, because some of these stories can be a bit ridiculous. So first and foremost, a couple of the background points are that Arkansas won the national championship this year, and the college football playoff came down to these 4 teams. It was Arkansas, Texas, Florida, and Virginia Tech. Don't ask me how I came up with those 4 teams. Those are just the first 4 that just kind of popped into my mind, and I was like, oh, it'd be cool if these teams were competitive again. So those 4 teams were in it. A couple other notes: UCF is now a college football powerhouse, so that they're basically in contention every single year, but this year they had a slightly down year. Next is Alabama has fallen off significantly since Nick Saban retired and basically went off the grid and went to Bermuda. Ohio State has has had a bit of a downturn ever since even more information surfaced about the Urban Meyer situation that had gone on. WVU is making a big resurgence in the college football landscape. Pittsburgh has finally found some consistency and are actually college football hopefuls. And then the last point of contention is that there are some other top teams that there hasn't been much change, and they remain, powerhouses. Teams like LSU, Penn State, Georgia, Oklahoma, those guys still remain, in the conversation. So to break down the top 25, I actually came up with a top 25 teams to kind of go off of while I was creating these players, because I figured, why not add that extra level of depth. So the top 25 teams in this franchise, and you guys will see a lot as we go through here, the top 25 teams will have a lot of the players that are actually selected in this draft class. So top 25 in order from 1st to 25th are Arkansas, Texas, Florida, Virginia Tech, UCF, LSU, Penn State, WVU, Oklahoma, and Pittsburgh at 10. Then Georgia, Notre Dame, Iowa, Wisconsin, Clemson at 15, Auburn, Ohio State, Boise State, USC, and Hawaii at 20th. And then to round it out with the last 5, we have Temple, Rutgers, Alabama, Miami, and Buffalo. So a really interesting group of teams going on there.
So the first thing that I see, Jake, is the big one, which is the Arkansas Razorbacks. I see that the guy that's at the top of the big board is Kashani Levita. You want
Yes.
to explain why Levita is your number 1 overall prospect in this Mel Kiper Jr. role?
Yeah, so I'm going to discuss a little bit here about what's going on with Arkansas, actually, to kind of explain that. I got to find it here in my notes just so that I have the exact explanation. Where is it at? So the story that I came up with Arkansas was nobody really knows why or how they just burst onto the scene the way they did. Last year, they burst onto the scene and they did really well, and they finished high in the top 25, like top 10 or something like that. And, they've never really had a great coach. They don't have a top recruiting class, and they weren't even considered contenders in recent years until last season whenever they burst onto the scene. But they've been they've kind of led the way in terms of a defensive resurgence in NCAA football, with what's been going on with some of their players that have kind of emerged as top defenders and top 10 picks in this draft class, and they've really kind of started to strike fear into the hearts of other teams that they have to go up against. And part of that is the combination of Kashani Levita. He obviously is a huge pass rushing presence as a speed rushing outside linebacker, something that Arkansas hasn't really had in a very long time, is a really good true pass rushing talent. And to have somebody that is essentially the number 1 pick in the draft, and undoubtedly the best player in the draft class, everybody agrees. Obviously, that's kind of led the way for them to be competitive. And not only that, they've also been spearheaded by the brothers Titus and Nathan Supreme. This linebacker and strong safety combo has kind of really made it, impossible for teams to move the ball, because if they try to go anywhere over the middle, Titus Supreme is right there making big hits, knocking the ball out, knocking the ball away, and he's a fantastic, well-rounded player. He's good in pass coverage, he's good stopping the run, and it's really hard to get anything going against a team that has somebody like that. He draws comparisons to the likes of Luke Kuechly and Bobby Wagner. Nathan Supreme is a really, really good strong safety that he draws comparisons to Harrison Smith in that he is a pretty good coverage player, but he's also a really good, well-rounded player, and he can come up and make a hit if he needs to, and player, other teams are really afraid to kind of throw his way. And so when you have guys at all those levels that are creating havoc, a pass rusher creating havoc in the backfield, a linebacker that locks down the middle of the field, and then a safety that locks down everywhere else, it's pretty hard to get the ball moving against a team like that. So that's kind of what's been going on with Arkansas.
All right. So my next question is, who won the Heisman? Everybody wants to know who won the Heisman. It's the
So
biggest award in college football.
the Heisman Trophy winner was actually Cason Venus. Cason Venus is a quarterback out of Florida. He's a bit of a scrambler. He's a really tanky guy, 250 pounds, 6'3", very young at 20 years old. Kind of reminds me of a former Florida quarterback that wore number 15 that I can't quite put my finger on what his name was. But Cason Venus wore number 5 because he respected what that player did. Obviously, you guys should know who I'm referencing there. So very similar player there.
If you're live in the chat, take a guess. We'll give you 5 seconds to comment on either one of our streams. It's real simple.
All right, man, and it's obviously Tim Tebow. I modeled Cason Venus against Tim Tebow. It's just something to keep it fun. What's the next team you wanted to talk about?
So we're looking at the resurgence of the Pennsylvania teams, and more specifically, the reemergence of the Pitt Panthers. What is going on there?
Okay, so I talked a bit about this. Pretty interesting stuff going on with Pittsburgh here, and a pretty interesting backstory with this. Let me just go ahead and find it in my notes. So essentially what happened here was the Pitt Panthers head coaching job opened up, and a guy by the name of Andy Lee, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of him, former punter for the Pittsburgh Panthers, punter for the Arizona Cardinals, recently retired in this league, and he was willing to go ahead and step into that coaching job just to see if he could provide anything from his former experience playing with the team and playing in the NFL that could help them out. And, it just so happens that he has a really good friend that he played with at Pitt and in Arizona by the name of Larry Fitzgerald, who was trying to settle down in Arizona and live a quiet life and kind of finish out his days in Arizona. And he kind of received a call from Pitt and from Andy Lee to say, hey, I don't need you to come up to Pittsburgh or anything like that, but I'd like your help making Pittsburgh a good team, putting them back on the college football map. And Fitzgerald willingly obliged because Fitzgerald, with his Hall of Fame resume behind him, was able to kind of target the Arizona area and the surrounding states in order to bring in a new wave of recruits to Pittsburgh that Pitt hasn't seen in a while. A lot of people know that Pitt's troubles in recent years have been the fact that they just can't recruit, and they can't beat out teams like Penn State that are nearby and Ohio State for all the recruits in that area, so they, had to go elsewhere. And Larry Fitzgerald, backed by his Hall of Fame resume, was able to convince a lot of really great talent from around that area to go up to Pitt and start their NFL careers because they knew that they'd have a good chance there. So that's kind of what's going on with Pitt, a nice little working relationship between Andy Lee and Larry Fitzgerald to put Pittsburgh back on the college football map, and they are, as I had mentioned before, up in the top 25. Weren't they top 10? I think actually they were number 10.
Pitt was 10. So looking at the Pitt prospects, I only see 3 prospects really in this class that are big names. Timothy Savage, the brother of Tom Savage, played quarterback at Pitt from 2015 to 2017. And really didn't go anywhere in the NFL. So where's Timothy from? Is he local? Did he go to Central?
So I don't have a ton of backstory on a lot of these prospects. Actually, some of these Pitt guys are kind of coming over from the old guard prior to the Andy Lee and Fitzgerald era takes over. So what you will see is in the next couple of seasons, you'll probably see a lot of really good Pitt prospects come out in the future draft classes because of the fact that they're just starting to get consistent and starting to, be a contender. So right now, a lot of those good players that they have are still, sophomores, around that time frame. So you should see them coming out in the future.
So before we get to the two Hall of Fame college coaches, let's touch on West Virginia, the other side of the backyard brawl. So I saw that Denard Robinson is now the head coach at West Virginia.
Yeah, so interesting storyline there. Denard Robinson, after kind of finding his way out of the NFL, not really having a lot of success. Ended up back at Michigan, and he was a coaching assistant and kind of worked his way up the ranks at Michigan under Harbaugh and learned some of the tricks of the trades from one of the best coaches that there is, somebody that's had NFL time, all of the above. And so once the West Virginia job opened, Denard Robinson was applying for jobs at a couple different colleges. He ended up applying for the West Virginia job and got it. And part of the reason why that worked out well for him is because they had a very similar quarterback there at West Virginia by the name of Jax Fleet, and he's actually coming out in this draft class. And so he's been coaching up West Virginia and putting them, firmly in the hunt in recent years, at least for some good bowl games. And he's developed Jax Fleet into a pretty good dual threat type of quarterback, much like Denard Robinson was back in the day.
All right, so we're going to touch on these scandals here in just one moment. So, the next big thing is we see the emergence of Hawaii as a top team out of, I believe it's the MAC conference now?
Yeah,
Or the Mountain West?
so Hawaii was a big one. I can't even tell you what conference they're in, to be honest with you. Hawaii's got a pretty cool story. So I don't know if you guys have ever heard of a guy by the name of Angus McClure, but he's a offensive line coach at Nevada, or was an offensive line coach at Nevada, and he's one of the top sought-after offensive line coaches around. And Hawaii decided to bring in a what I would call a trench-minded coach to take over the football program here at Hawaii. And the reason being is that in the past, the coaches and the organization hasn't utilized the talent from areas, in the Pacific Islands, Hawaii and all those areas in the Pacific Islands south of that. They get in a lot of bigger guys, a lot of strong guys, and they haven't utilized that talent as appropriately as they could. And so they decided to bring in, like I said, a trench-minded guy, and being that they brought in Angus, he kind of realized how to utilize that natural talent. He brought in a different approach, and he harnessed the gifts of these players, and essentially what they did is they built themselves an offensive line machine, an offensive line factory, essentially, and they've produced some of the best offensive linemen that the NFL have ever seen, guys like Alikamu Havamatu, and then, as you guys will see at right tackle here, Uma Glovakilo. Lots of really good offensive linemen, even defensive linemen, and some defensive players in general. And the reason that this team has had a surge in success is because they've had this mindset of basically creating the best line that they possibly could on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. So what happens is when they go to play offense, the quarterback isn't touched. They don't have the best talent. They don't have the best quarterbacks or receivers or skill players in the world, but they're able to be successful because the quarterback's never touched because the offensive line's so good, and the halfbacks there have massive holes to run through. They always have running lanes to choose from, and on the defensive side of the ball, it's really hard to move the ball against those big mamma jammas up front that are just stonewalling the offensive linemen on the opposite side. And another cool thing is that they decided that it was a good idea to build up the defensive side of the ball even further. They reached out to none other than Troy Polamalu to get a little bit of his expertise on the defensive side of the ball to try to help out Hawaii's defense, because like I said, they're able to run the offense with impunity however they want because their offensive line is so good. So all they need is their defense to hold the opponents to a certain number of points, and they're able to do what they want to do. And they've been able to do that very successfully through some of those additions, like I said, picking up Angus McClure as their head coach and using the knowledge of Troy Polamalu to help them out in addition to that.
All right, so now what everyone's been waiting for before we go to the ACC and talk about the teams that have now switched from their conference and teams that have left and come to the ACC and who's the coaching staff at Virginia Tech. What is going on with Urban Myers and Nick Saban?
So it's very interesting things here. So, so the Urban Meyer situation got a lot more complicated, and that's why you won't see a lot of Ohio State players here. A lot of Ohio State players transferred away, and Ohio State has really kind of fallen off the map quite a bit in recent years. And the reason being is that after the Urban Meyer situation came out, there was some more digging done, and they found out that Urban Meyer actually hired a hitman in order to kind of silence those that knew about the domestic violence case that was going on, because there's more information going on with that. And rumor has it that he hired a hitman to keep people quiet, and I guess he's under federal investigation. And so there's a lot of complications going on there with Ohio State. I don't even think that they're eligible for bowl games at this point because of all the nonsense that's gone on there. So they've really fallen off as a college football program. And then I think the other one was Nick Saban. This one's not so much along those lines, but it's more so just that it turns out that allegedly Nick Saban was having an affair with Charlotte McKinney. So in order to avoid, being in the spotlight further and causing complications and stuff like that, and shaming his family, he pretty much just vanished from college football without much word. And a year or two later, which would be recently in this franchise, it turns out that a couple of tourists spotted him in Bermuda chilling on his yacht with his alleged mistress. So that's kind of what's gone on with those two famous coaches. They've kind of really fallen off in recent years, and so have their programs likewise.
All right, Jake. So the last thing we have to talk about is the Hokies and the realignment in the ACC.
Yes. So the Virginia Tech situation is very interesting. As you guys have probably seen on the screen here, they've got this guy by the name of Xavier Torre. Really good dual threat quarterback. Reminds us a lot of Michael Vick, and that's no surprise there. Essentially, what happened here is that this young kid, he was tearing up high school football as a halfback in the state of Virginia, and he was one of the nation's top halfback prospects. But he, when he graduated high school, he married his high school sweetheart and actually had two daughters. And he made a judgment call and said, hey, if I'm going to be going to college football, I don't want to be suffering all this punishment as a halfback, so I need to switch positions. He decided to switch positions as quarterback. That way he could hopefully better provide for his family, and therefore not a lot of teams actually wanted him as a quarterback. It was kind of a struggle for him to find teams who really wanted him, but Virginia Tech actually reached out to him and knew that he'd be capable of running their system if he just had a little bit of time and a little bit of development. So they brought him in, they offered to develop his talents, and he redshirted his freshman year. He slowly progressed over the next couple of seasons to really start to pick it up and become a really good dual-threat quarterback. And because Michael Vick and Marcus Vick, the brothers, do a lot of things with Virginia Tech, they support the college, and they're around there a lot, they kind of saw what was going on with this kid. They took notice, and they had talks with the athletic department to try and join the team and help this kid turn himself into a real top-end quarterback talent in the NFL. And that's exactly what happened. They agreed to hire them on as co-coaches, and they pretty much helped this kid develop into Michael Vick 2.0, going into an NFL career. And as you guys will see, he's 24 years old coming out, so it did take him a while to develop his talents to this point, but he is a really, really good dual threat player. A nice, interesting note here is that he wears number 18, and the reason he wears number 18 is because of the fact that 18 teams told him that they didn't want him whenever he switched to quarterback. So he wears that number. He was actually offered by Michael Vick to wear number 7, but he said he respected what he did too much for the game in order to actually take that number off of him. And so instead of doing that, he wore 18 to represent the number of teams that said they didn't want him after he switched to quarterback.
So that's really unique. Now, is he a lefty like Vic, or is he?
He's actually a righty. He's actually a righty.
Okay.
Yes, he is.
Thought we literally had the second coming of Michael Vick at left-handed quarterback in the NFL. You don't see too many lefties anymore. I think the last lefty quarterback in the NFL right now is Kyler Murray.
Yeah, so not quite. There are a couple of lefty quarterbacks on this list, so that is something to look out for. On this list of quarterbacks that I've put a lot of time and effort into, there are a few lefty quarterbacks, so something to certainly to keep your lookout for. I think the next thing we had to talk about was some of the realignments of the teams. So Temple and Buffalo actually joined the ACC to try and form better close geographic rivalries with Pitt. And the ACC as a whole has actually improved quite dramatically with teams like Pitt and Rutgers and Temple really showing consistent improvement and consistently being in the top 25. And what actually happened was those teams were enabled to join the ACC because Clemson left the ACC to join the SEC. And when Clemson joined the SEC, they couldn't compete with all the other teams there. They couldn't handle that level of competition, and that's why you've seen them kind of decline in recent years, and you won't see as many great players coming out of Clemson in these draft classes. And then what other teams did we say relocated?
Well, I know one was Miami. Miami went to SEC as well when Clemson left. West Virginia relocated to the ACC as well after being in the Big
Yes.
12 for 4 years. But
So that's the general kind of background story of what's going on with this draft class and how we came up with what I came up with.
so definitely a great draft class. As you can see, Arkansas has uh, three of the top 10 players in Jake Reed's mock draft board.
Yep.
With the Heisman Trophy winner being the second quarterback off. So tell me about Derek Summits.
So Derek Summits is the quarterback out of Texas, and there's a little bit of controversy that happened with him towards the end of the season. Essentially, what it boils down to is he and the team claimed that he had an injury, but some digging around revealed that he might not have actually had an injury and might have been, kind of essentially skipping out on his teammates and stuff in order to try and prepare for the NFL. And the word of that situation got at Derek Summits. Derek Summits is above Case and Venus just for the pure fact that he's more of a field general, pure passer type of quarterback. And a lot of people are hesitant on a guy like Case and Venus because of what he represents. He's very much like Tim Tebow, and Tim Tebow, NFL teams weren't a huge fan of having a quarterback that doesn't have that great of an arm and isn't that great of a thrower, even though he wins a lot of games. So that's why Derek Summits is above Case and Venus, but he's not number one on the board because there's some complicated situations going on there that's kind of affecting his draft stock. So it'll be interesting to see when the draft rolls around whether he goes top of the board, whether he might fall and slide a little bit, because there's talks that he could slide even further in the draft.
All right. Well, as you guys can see, this is our draft class. This is what we're going to be working with. If you guys like the video, hit that like button. Thanks again to Jacob Reed for doing this draft class for us. Jake's going to be taking control of one of the teams, a team every year let me rephrase that. Jake's going to be taking control of one team every year to do the draft and to make some moves to see how if he can improve that team so that we have a chance of meeting one of his teams in the Super Bowl so that it's a little bit more interesting. Jake's not going to play any games because this is still an offline franchise. But definitely check out what's going on.
We want to relocate the Raiders to Vegas and do a couple things like that. So just to make things a little bit more interesting. So like I said, to my channel, if you guys are interested, if this intrigued you in some way, that was my goal, was just to help him out and try to get some more views on his videos, just because he makes good franchise content and I enjoy watching his videos. So if you guys enjoy watching that type of stuff, make sure you check out his channel right now. Hit that subscribe button. If you guys appreciate this type of video, if you guys want to see more of this on my channel, maybe leave a like and comment below and stuff like that. I know that this probably won't be the most popular popular thing on my channel, but I do want to give him the shout out and direct people to Diamond King 5923 here on YouTube.
All right, and I appreciate that. And as always, go check out Jake. I shout him out in every video. The man, we're trying to get him still to 3K before July 4th. It's looking tight. I think we can still do it. He's got 2,228. We need about 800 subscribers. So go check him out. Do what you got to do. Shout out your friends. And to all you guys not subscribed that watch the videos, hit that subscribe button because you guys know you're coming back every week to see what's going on with this Pittsburgh Steelers team. All right, guys.
All right, guys.
That'll do it for
That's
our
what we
video.
got for you.
And we'll catch you guys next time.